Members of committee, we are now live.
Okay. Got to scroll up to the top of my roadmap here. We have a new introduction for our roadmap. So I'd like to welcome everyone to the meeting and call it to order. The roll has been taken by the clerk. I would like to remind the committee, staff, and our viewing public of the electronic participation policy for virtual meetings. Staff and delegates are reminded to keep their video and microphones off until requested by the moderator or members of the committee. The full corporate policy, number 50, regarding electronic and virtual meetings is available online to review. Further, in the event of a connection or service interruption that occurs and affects quorum, we may recess for up to 15 minutes to regain quorum. If quorum is not achieved, the meeting will be adjourned. All rules for delegation under the city's procedural bylaw will continue to apply. And all members of the Heritage Committee participating via online video conference will vote by physical show of hands. The chair will indicate to leave your hands raised until he has determined the result of the vote. So with that, I'm going to start with number 2 then, which are declarations of conflicts of interest. Are there any conflicts of interest for any member on the committee tonight? Okay, hearing none. There are no presentations or delegations. So we'll move into items for consideration. And the first item for consideration is a proposed alteration to 72 Brandt Ave. And this, the applicant is here to answer questions if any of the members of the committee have a question regarding this application. It doesn't have a formal presentation, but is available to answer questions should any members of the committee have questions. Do any members of the committee have questions for the applicant? Seeing none, okay. We'll move to the staff report then.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, Chair and members. I'm just going to start sharing my screen. So this is item HA 0621, the Heritage Permit application for 72 Brandt Avenue. The subject property is located within the Brandt Avenue Heritage Conservation District. It was built circa 1968. So after the majority of the buildings in the district, but before the district itself was designated. And then just a context map. The property is on the west side of Brandt Avenue. Waterloo Street is to the north of the property and Church Street is to the south. The applicant's proposal is to construct a 2-story addition at the rear of the building. Alterations that require a building permit are classified as major alterations, necessitating review and approval by the Brantford Heritage Committee. The remainder of the property, the front and the gray portion will not be changed as a result of the alterations, merely the addition being put at the back. And it's just an excerpt from the building permit drawings provided by the applicant. And this just further shows the area where the addition would be added in yellow, and then the existing portions of the building can be seen with the diagonal hatching. This is a rear elevation provided by the applicant. So the addition will be 2 stories. It'll have a shed roof and it will be clad in a pre-finished metal siding. And we just have the west and east elevations showing again that 2-story height and cladding, and the shed roof, which is the simple 1 angle, 1 pitch plain roof. There will be on the east elevation a lower portion, approximately 1 story in height. And the applicant provided this image or a brochure about the proposed cladding. So it will be green the choice was made to tie in with the existing building. Staff have reviewed the proposal. The bulk of the guidelines for the district speak to alterations that are visible from the street. The primary way to regulate change and ensure sympathetic development is based on appearance. We do not control the interior, the use or interior alterations in a district. That said, the bulk of these guidelines really speak to trying to match new development to the existing character, which is predominantly residential buildings. And so really in that case, following the district guidelines would present an interesting addition. However, this property being of a different era, a different typology, staff considered the fact that the building addition is located at the rear, will generally be screened from the street, and therefore it would not need to meet the same sort of design criteria, for example, historic features and replicating historic attributes. That would result in an addition that doesn't quite match the style of the building it's being added onto. So in consideration, staff felt that while this is a modern building and a simple contemporarily styled addition, it does meet the intent of the district guidelines. It's not going to have a negative effect on this property or any of the adjacent properties. It will not change the massing and rhythm of the street. And the addition is sized to stay below the maximum height of 3 stories that the guidelines recommend. So this addition will not be visible or have an impact on the shape and appearance of this building or increase the massing. So on that basis, staff recommend that the alteration be approved in accordance with the details provided by the applicant. So that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions that any may have.
Okay, any questions for Patrick? Seeing none, I have one out of interest that Patrick just mentioned. The criteria of 3-story buildings. I'm not sure that we have many 3-story buildings along the district. Can you comment about that, or are there any? Or
off the top of my head, through the chair, to the chair, I believe there may be a few buildings, if they're not dwellings now, they were former dwellings, but in a French Second Empire style, and so they would have mansard roofs and dormers. And then there is the Brantford Collegiate Institute, which I do not know if it's 3 stories from memory, or if it's just being an institutional building, it was designed to have a much larger presence on the street and larger massing. I believe most of the buildings that are over the relative height of 3 stories would be churches and other buildings that benefit from that monumental scale. I do not know that many are a full 3 stories. But that guideline is there again to prevent new development from being far and above, overwhelming the neighboring properties.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, that's what exactly where I thought we were going to go. Thanks. So with that, we have a motion to approve. Would anyone like to move that motion or any other motion? Moved by Susan. Do we have a seconder? I see Rob's hand first, I think. Any discussion on this application? No? Okay. Hearing none then, I will call the vote. All those in favor, hands raised. Perfect, hands down. And Lise, would you please indicate your vote? Do we have Lise?
We do. I believe she just needs to press *6 to unmute.
In favor.
Perfect, thank you. I declare it carried. Moving on to item 4.2, which is a proposed alteration to 135 Brandt Avenue, application HA 07-21. And John Bissalon is here to speak to this item. As a reminder, you have 10 minutes to present inclusive of questions for the committee.
Good evening, everybody. How are you guys doing tonight? Been retained by CA Financial to rework his porch. I got to know the gentleman a little bit through other financial dealings, but he brought me underneath under fold to kind of show me his front porch and realize that basically I think a Canada Post at some point, they wouldn't even deliver mail to it anymore. It's been that far gone in repair. So anyways, he's retained us to clearly kind of provide some drawing sketches and retain the appropriate people to kind of help us through this process. And we've reached to a point now that we're now ready to proceed with your guys' approval and with the building department as well. So we kept in mind that we knew that generally this was a heritage district designated of sort, and we'd want to do our best to try to maintain the theme and sort of the heritage of the whole area. So care to attention and detail were made with selection of some of the materials that we proposed. Really at this point, it had been built with some stone that was similar to the same on the facade of the building, and also some clay brick too that had been repurposed and brought in from off-site that doesn't really specifically match the said building, but is fallen to disrepair that it's really unsafe to walk into. So our proposal is to more or less support the portico structure that's sitting above the porch, and then remove the existing, install engineered footing, and rebuild the same. And I think reasonably some of the the finishes to this whole thing should complement the building and kind of prove durable for the foreseeable future. And at the end of this, we'll be restoring some sod and some landscaping to the front of the building once this is complete. So I'm hoping sort of what we propose is satisfactory to the committee, and I'm willing to take any questions now about this.
Perfect. Thank you for your information there that you provided. Do any members of the committee have any questions for the delegation? Seeing none, thank you for your time, and we will move on to the staff presentation.
Thank you, Chair. This is the staff presentation for Heritage Permit Application HA 0721 for 135 Brandt Avenue. So 135 Brandt Avenue is within the Brandt Avenue Heritage Conservation District. This is just an image of the front of the building. So it's a converted dwelling. The property is located just south of the intersection of Brandt Avenue, Lorne Crescent, and Richmond Street. And so, as Mr. Vissilon had noted, his client has the front entrance is a stairway and patio or porch landing constructed of brick, but just due to the years and the exposure to the elements, as members can see in these slides, much of the mortar has degraded, and there's a bit of what appears to be sagging and other damage to the brick. As we've been told, the point that Canada Post will no longer allow its mail couriers to use the front entrance, and the property owner, CA Financial, has had to make arrangements for a new mail location. So the applicant was proposing to remove the porch landing and front stairs, but retain the wooden columns and the porch roof. So the stairs would be constructed of a actual natural stone. The side walls would be constructed of masonry bricks, and then the patio, or I keep saying patio, sorry, the porch landing, along with the front walkway, would be constructed of a cement paving material, and that would be in a tan and gray color. The masonry bricks would be in gray, and the stone would be a natural color. Pictures of the materials will follow in a number of slides. And to ensure that the future stairs do not experience sagging and can withstand use, the new front porch will be constructed with a new foundation as well. So there will be complete removal and excavation of the porch landing and stairs and any old foundation, and a new foundation up to modern Ontario Building Code standards will be poured in place, and this new patio or new porch landing constructed on top. And this just represents a side view, a side elevation provided by the applicant, and so it just provides a detail on the number of stairs, the treatment. It notes the Monterey Tweed paving stones. This application was circulated to the building department for comment. They noted that based on the use of the property being a commercial property now, and the height of the stairs, there was a requirement under the building code for a guard, something to prevent accidental falls over the side. And so this matter was brought to Mr. Besselon's attention, and it was proposed that oak balusters would be used and a wooden railing. The balusters being wood do fit they're consistent with the guidelines that historic materials be used or new versions of the same materials be used where possible. The applicant is proposing that they will be painted white to match the existing porch columns and just tie in that way so that they will meet the modern building code requirements. However, they will be sympathetic to the existing property. Now, this is just a sample of the materials provided by the applicant. So the masonry bricks for the sidewall in the limestone or gray color. We can see the landing surface, which is cement pavers. The color by the manufacturer is called Monterey. It's a mix of tan and gray, a sort of mottled appearance. And then the natural stone would be used for the actual stair runners and treads. And again, being natural stone, this matches what we see in many buildings in the district, which have a rubble stone foundation. So staff have considered the proposal and feel that we do see that this front entrance presents a safety hazard. The front entrance is an important part of historic buildings. It was the focal point of the front facade and the main way to greet visitors. The applicant's proposal shows consideration for historic materials or use of modern materials that are sympathetic to the character and appearance of the dwelling. So on that basis, staff recommend that the alteration be approved. That concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Patrick. Any questions for Patrick on his presentation? Seeing none, we have a motion to approve. Would someone care to make that motion? Susan, seconded by Ed. Any discussion on the motion? Then I will call the question. All those in favor? Thank you. And please unmute yourself.
In favor.
Thank you. I declare the motion carried. Thank you very much. So move on to our next item, which is 4.3, proposed alteration to 175 Brandt Avenue, application HA 08-21. I call on staff to make their presentation for this item.
Thank you, Chair. Once again, I will be doing the staff presentation for item HA 0821, which is the heritage permit application. Just share my screen. So the subject property is located within the Brandt Avenue Heritage Conservation District. It is, like the preceding file, it's a former residential dwelling that has been converted to an office. The property is located on Brandt Avenue on the east side of Brandt Ave between Warren Crescent to the south and Henrietta Street to the north. The matter before the committee through this permit application is masonry repairs to various locations on the entire structure, as well as some more comprehensive rebuilding work to be done. So right now we have just some pictures of a deterioration that's occurring at the base of various walls. So you can see step cracks and loss of mortar where bricks have somewhat settled because they're no longer in that mortar matrix that holds them in place and adds the strength of the wall. Here we have some examples of two locations at the rear of the property. So on the left, an example of bricks which have fallen out of the mortar and existing grate. I can't say to what purpose the steel grate at the bottom is used for, but it is currently detached from the wall, which presents an issue for water infiltration at the foundation and an opportunity for small mammals or rodents to try and gain entry. And that is exactly what we see in the picture to the right. There were signs when staff visited and in other locations as well, actually, of rodents trying to burrow below the wall, looking for perhaps shelter over the winter. But once again, these present concerns from a drainage perspective. They let water right up against the foundation and expose that mortar to further weathering. There are also locations for repointing of damage and lost mortar on both side facades. So the picture at the left and the center are taken and they were prepared by the applicant's mason. And they identify areas of step cracks or other mortar repointing work to be done. The image on the right is the south or east facade, again, showing locations of work in the pink or red. Additional repointing work is required at the front entrance and even the rear entrance of the building. Again, locations are marked in pink by the mason. The mason has inspected these and specified a lime-based type and mortar in cream, which reflects the Heritage Conservation District studies guidelines on masonry repairs to use, like brick and like mortar, similar to what would have been used when these buildings were constructed. Now before the committee, one of the more comprehensive repairs. So the rear of the building has a 4 or 5 panel bay window. The knee wall for the bay window is constructed of brick, and that includes both the wall and the sill for the bay window. The mason has reviewed the situation and determined that in addition to mortar loss and cracks, as can be seen in the left photo, that the brick sill is actually now pointing towards the base of the windows. So when it rains, now water, instead of being shed, as is the purpose of the sill, it's actually being directed into the building at the base of the windows. So the mason that the applicants consulted with is recommending that the knee wall itself, just the exterior brick, the brick be taken down and the wall rebuilt to ensure that it is, the mortar is fully repaired, that the repairs are more than cosmetic, and that the sill can be reconstructed so that it properly sheds the water away from the window. In addition to the foregoing alterations, there are 2 chimneys which remain on the property or on the building. The applicant is proposing that the chimney visible from the front, and that's the one in the left image on the screen, that the bricks and the mortar have, the bricks and the mortar have been exposed to weathering and are starting to degrade. So the applicant's mason was proposing to remove the front chimney and then rebuild it with new brick and the type N mortar, but bricks to be matched to the existing buff yellow bricks that are used to actually construct the dwelling. And as part of that reconstruction, they would be looking to match the existing corbelling design on the chimney so that the new chimney would look as the old one did. That said, the chimney at the rear is exposed to the same weathering. The mason has recommended the chimney be removed, and the information provided to staff and the applicant is currently not proposing to rebuild the rear chimney. So it would be removed to render it safe so it doesn't fall on the roof or perhaps fall down onto a customer. So the rear of the property is used as the parking lot for the office. But it would be patched, shingled over. It would not be rebuilt. This applicant originally contacted planning staff. They were interested in applying for the Heritage Grant Program. Unfortunately, at the time of the site visit, they had only been able to achieve or retain 1 mason for a quote. And they were looking to contact a second to provide that matching scope of work. Staff seeing the level of deterioration in certain locations, especially at the base of the building and with the windows, staff felt it was important that this application come forward first as a heritage permit so that the applicant could receive their approval and complete some of these crucial repairs before the winter, for that prevents masonry repairs from being able to be carried out. Done in winter, mortar may not set properly, which can lead to a rush patch job or degradation much sooner than is anticipated. As of yet, the applicant hasn't been able, that staff are aware of, hasn't been able to retain another mason to provide a matching scope of work, which is crucial for a heritage grant application. That would be forthcoming, and when it does, staff are supportive of the application for the grant being reviewed once it's available, but feeling that the work that needs to occur is of the urgent variety, and if not done before winter, there's potential for much more serious degradation, especially in the foundations of this building. So on that basis, staff recommend that the request to alter 175 Brandt Avenue for masonry repairs be approved. That concludes my presentation, and I am happy to answer any questions of the committee.
When the bay window is done, are they putting a new window in as well, or is it just the brickwork?
The information provided through the quote was that just the windows would remain, and then the wall below would be deconstructed and the exterior brick reconstructed and repointed in place.
Okay.
Any other questions for Patrick? No? Okay. My question was going to be about the Heritage Grant Program, and you've done an excellent job at answering that. So thank you for providing that information. So the staff recommendation is that the application be approved. Would anyone like to make that motion? Or any other motion?
Can I move that? Lisa Marie?
Sure. Tamara, are you seconding that then? Perfect. Any discussion on that item? Okay, then I'll call the question. All those in favor? Okay, hands down.
Lisa in favor as well.
Perfect. So I declare that approved then. We will move on to item 4.4, which is a public art subcommittee and staff recommendation related to signage for Prominence Point. There is no formal presentation for this item. However, staff are here if there are any questions. Does anyone have any questions of staff? I think they've done a well thought out report here. I'd like to thank them for their time in bringing this forward. So can I have a mover or a seconder for that very long motion that has H parts? Christopher, and seconded by Dan. Any discussion about the motion? Okay, seeing none, I'll call the question then. All those in favor? Okay, hands down. And Elise? Perfect.
In favor.
I declare that carried then. We will now move on to item 4.5. And Victoria is here to provide us an update on part 2, phase A of our Heritage Register project. Oh, Victoria's in City Hall too.
I am, yes. Good evening, committee members. Victoria Coates, Senior Planner in Long Range Planning, and I'm here to give a brief presentation on the report before the committee tonight regarding the Heritage Register project, specifically Part 2, Phase A properties that are recommended for listing. Oops. To share my screen here. Okay. Okay, starting off with just a little bit of background, a heritage register provides an official record of all designated heritage properties in the city. So both properties that are individually designated under Part 4 of the Heritage Act, as well as properties that are designated as part of a heritage conservation district under Part 5. A heritage register can also include non-designated listed properties, which are properties that are believed to be of cultural heritage value. And in order to add or remove listed properties from the register, council approval is required, as well as consultation with the Brantford Heritage Committee. So in terms of the differences between designated and listed properties, a designated property has a municipal bylaw that's registered on title. The city has up to 90 days to review any demolition permit that would affect a designated property. And as the committee is well aware, any alterations to a designated property are required to get approval of a heritage permit. Whereas with listed properties that aren't designated, there is no legal document registered on title. Heritage permits aren't required for alterations. But what it does allow is that it provides the city with 60 days to review demolition permits. And that time period allows the city an opportunity to consult with the Heritage Committee to evaluate whether a property might merit designation to protect it from demolition, and to also work with the owner to investigate other opportunities for conservation. So the city's Heritage Register project has been focused on updating the city's heritage register by identifying those properties that may be strong candidates for inclusion on the register as non-designated listed properties. So this project, part one of this project was conducted between 2017 and 2020 and was focused on reviewing all properties on the city's heritage inventory, so over 9,000 properties, as well as other properties that were identified in consultation with the community and the Heritage Committee as potentially having heritage value. So part one, we employed a standardized and rigorous process to evaluate all those properties that included applying comprehensive screening criteria, proceeding to a field survey to photograph and record additional information about properties, as well as evaluating the material integrity or the physical condition of properties, and then finally applying criteria for determining cultural heritage value. And as a result of that process, 832 properties were identified as being strong candidates for inclusion on the register as listed properties. And in August of 2020, after consultation with the Heritage Committee, Council approved the listing of 98 priority properties and directed staff to proceed with part two of the project. So we've now initiated part two of the project, which is where Council will consider the remaining 700 or so properties that are recommended for listing. And that will be done through 8 phases between 2021 and 2023. Each of these phases is done based on a specific area of the city that the Heritage Committee helped to prioritize. And each phase consists of consultation with property owners before the Heritage Committee and Council considers the recommendation to list the properties on the register. So the subject of the report before the committee tonight is Phase A. So this is this is the area shown in light green here on your screen, and it includes West Brandt, Downtown, and Market Street South, Tutela Heights, and the Gilkinson Flats areas of Brantford. And through part one of the project, there were 77 properties that were identified as being strong candidates for listing. So in Phase A, what we've done is reviewed any demolition permits or building permits that may have affected these properties. We also completed a windshield survey, and that was done to verify that there's been no substantial physical changes to any of these properties that would potentially impact their cultural heritage value. We also provided a notice to all property owners, which included information about their specific property, as well as frequently asked questions. And we hosted a virtual public information center on October 4th. And as a result of this work, all 77 properties continue to merit inclusion on the Heritage Register, and staff will be recommending that these properties be added to the register as non-designated listed properties. So staff is seeking comments from the Brantford Heritage Committee regarding these Phase A properties that are recommended to be included on the Heritage Register, and any comments that the committee provides, staff will include in our future report to the Committee of the Whole Community Development. And I am happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, Victoria, for your presentation. Any questions for Victoria? No? Okay. Go back to my roadmap. So then we need a mover and a seconder for comments. And then we can talk about which comments we would like to add. Moved by Dan Brown, I guess I should say. Seeking a seconder for comments.
Actually, could I ask a quick question of Victoria? Sorry.
Oh, sure. Okay. There she popped in for us.
Thanks, Victoria. Through the chair, did you get much participation at the information center?
Through the chair, we only had one participant at the meeting. Now the meeting was live streamed on YouTube. So I know that there have been a number of views. Last time I checked, there was like 13 views. So some people may have been watching at home, but they didn't register to be able to speak on the Zoom meeting. So we just had the one participant. I have received a number of phone calls and emails. I think not a ton. We had about, I think it was 5 in total. But I think one thing I would just mention is we did provide a lot of information up front in the notice that went out to property owners. And I think that was really helpful this time around. And it was sort of a different approach than we took last time, and sort of, answering people's questions ahead of time before they need to, get worried and contact staff.
Okay, good. Are you ready to be a seconder then for comments? Yes. Okay, perfect. And does anyone have any comments that they would like to add about our Heritage Register Phase 2A? I have one, if no one else has any then, and that would be to include all candidates, including those who objected. That would be my one comment. Any other comments that people would like to be added? Okay. Any discussion then on the motion? So the one comment. No? Okay. I'll call the question then. All those in favor? Thank you. Lise, can you please indicate? Thank you. So I declare the motion carried. Thank you very much. So now we'll move on to item 4.6, which is me. So I have to pull up my agenda so I can look at the report and scroll through all these properties. Ooh. Perfect. Okay, so I have prepared a brief report identifying our requests for consideration to estimates for this year for our Heritage Committee. So our first item was what Victoria just talked about, the continuation of the Heritage Register project and continuing through the phases that year. The second item was for our Prominence Point Committee, which I believe now is Councillor McCurry, Councillor Wall, and myself. And we will hopefully be adding another candidate to the Prominence Point Committee this year. So that involves a glass plaque etching, which has to be removed from the monument, transported, then etched, then shipped back and reinstalled. So it is quite expensive. There was a candidate that was proposed, and the committee will consider that as well as a candidate for this year. The Prominence Point Subcommittee has also talked about creating a Heritage Awards program, and so they will also be meeting to draft those requirements. Engaging the public, we hope to do a walking tour and architecture bingo. These were prepared pre-COVID and have been waiting in the queue to launch. And so hopefully we will be able to have some subcommittees meeting and have some public education events. Item 5 is our professional development for members of the committee. So in the past, we have attended the Ontario Heritage Conference. The first year, I think I went with Sarah Clark to Sault Ste. Marie. And then there was a second year where I think Jamie, another member of our committee, attended. And then since COVID, we haven't been able to have a conference. Hopefully this year, we will be able to have an in-person conference and nominate some members from the committee to attend. Finally, sixth is the Heritage Grant Program. So we are suggesting that this program hopefully will get extended through 2022. I think people will recognize that COVID created an anomalous year in which not a lot of heritage permit applications were talked about or even used. So hopefully with some money left over in that program, that will allow that program to continue. And finally is protecting our heritage resources. And we always budget just in case we have some designations. And when a property is designated, it involves installing a plaque against the property. These plaques are expensive at $1,100 a piece, but that is what happens when the building is noted as designated. So those are the items for our budget to get forwarded to estimates. And there is a recommendation there that the Brantford Heritage Committee priorities for 2022 be received for information purposes, and that the estimated financial resources identified for the Brantford Heritage Committee priorities be referred to the Estimates Committee for consideration during the 2022 budget process. So I will ask for any questions, and after we have questions, we can talk about a motion if there are any. So any questions about our heritage priorities? Seeing none, would anyone like to make that motion that is printed in the recommendation? Seeking a mover for the recommendation. Mr. Benaki, thank you. And Mr. Brown. Any discussion about the report? Councilor Wall.
Yes, sorry, I was making sure. I have a question. I apologize, Nathan.
Go ahead.
No, I mean, I have a question. I didn't ask during the question period. I was trying to find it in the report where. So number 7, fourth column, completing heritage designation research and evaluation and coordinating the purchase and installation of designation plaques, $2,200. And I know that that's because of what they're made out of. Is there not consideration for using a different material or a cheaper material? Not cheapen is not the right word. Let's say more frugal material.
More cost-effective material?
Yeah, why is it going to be so expensive? Like, I understand wanting to have plaques that are, the same as what we did before, but like obviously that price of that metal has gone up so significantly. So is it not feasible for us to change that and use a composite or something? Sorry, you understand what I'm asking?
Yes, I do. That is not a question normally handled by me. That would be a question handled by staff. So I wonder if someone, maybe Victoria, you could speak to that a little bit. Or Alan.
While we're waiting for the answer, so if there was an appetite for it from this committee, I would move an amendment to say that we would investigate the use of other materials. Not that we would do it, but that we would investigate the use of other materials so that we could do more plaques.
Through the chair, the plaques are made of bronze, and that's just been historical practice. I know that some other plaques, like you can get like aluminum plaques that are designed to look like bronze, so that's certainly an option. We would have to investigate the costs. I don't know off the top of my head what that would cost, what the cost difference would be like. If you did leave the item at the 2,200, we can, if a designation plaque was needed, we can certainly look at quotes to use that budget accordingly for the plaques. So you might be able to get 3 plaques instead of 2 is what I'm saying. We don't, like the plaque money doesn't necessarily get used up every year. For instance, this year we haven't ordered any plaques, so that money would not be used.
Is that because there's a lack of places to put plaques?
So the plaques are just provided for properties that are designated. So the individually designated properties get a plaque. So if we don't designate a property in a given year, then there's no need to purchase a plaque.
Okay, I think that gets my answer. Thank you.
I see Alan's going to chime in too.
Yes, good evening, everyone. Can you all hear me? I was just going to say that the budget that's set aside for the plaques is, typically 2 plaques, which have historically been bronze. But the fact that it's 2 isn't what drives, how many properties we would designate in a given year. Really, what impacts that is the amount of work and research that Victoria and Patrick would be put into supporting a designation process. So it's not that's driven more by their the desire to see certain properties designated and the work that needs to be done to get them through that process, as opposed to the cost of the bronze plaque, which is something that comes afterwards.
Okay, Councillor Wall, does that answer your question then?
Absolutely.
Do you still want to attempt to tack on your amendment?
Do I have staff? Do you think that I should do an amendment?
I tend to think it's something that we could keep in mind when we come to the next point where we have a new property that's been designated in Brantford. We determine how we want to recognize it. We'd like to put on a plaque. Do we continue with our historical practice of using a bronze plaque, or do we look at other options that may be just as visually appealing but aren't as expensive?
Yeah, I think that I just had maybe thought that we were, at a shortage of recognizing homes. But if there's not a case where we have houses out there that don't have plaques, I think we're good for now. We can always do something at a later date. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Wall. Mr. Brown.
Sorry, do we have the choice to change that, or is that a provincial thing for that type of plaque? Like, is it up to every city?
Yeah, it's per municipality. However, each municipality has different plaques that they use. I know, well, the ones that I know of in the former town of Paris, I believe they were aluminum. So it is up to the municipality, however they want to recognize them. Yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Mr. Chair, yes, may I jump in?
Yep, go ahead.
Thank you very much. Two questions of staff. First of all, Alan, did I hear you correctly that that part of the budget for the designations involves staff time?
Through the chair, I don't see Alan on there, but I can answer that question. The budget does not involve staff time. I think Alan was just referencing that what might limit a number of designations that occur in a year is not the budget for the plaques. It's rather the staff capacity to conduct that necessary research.
Super, thank you. And Victoria, let me ask you this. Could you recall the last time that we, I guess, solicited applications for heritage designation?
Through the chair, I'm not aware of any soliciting of applications for designation. Staff has been very focused on the Heritage Register project. That's been the #1 priority to ensure that we're protecting those properties from demolition. The last designation that we did do was for 60 Market Street South, the train station. And that's currently been appealed, so it's going through that process, but it does have all of the protections of designation. I think that was 2019.
I wonder if you might give some thought to a method for us to go to the public and make them aware of the fact that we do this, and perhaps we'll get some inquiries. Could you perhaps undertake that and provide us with a report at the next Heritage Committee meeting?
Through the chair, the Heritage Register project, the final recommendations report, it did outline staff's work plan, which is focused on adding listed properties first. The next phase, once this 2 years is complete, would be to look at those Group A properties or those priority properties that council listed, and to move through researching those properties in detail, because they were identified as the strongest candidates for listing. So staff would be looking at researching those properties and bringing them forward to committees for committee's consideration once the Heritage Register project is complete in 2023. So that's staff's current plan.
Yeah, I know that may not be the Heritage Committee's current plan though, Victoria, and there was some discussion about introducing a number of heritage designations some time ago before the Heritage Register project did come to us. But what I'm asking is if you could give some thought to how the committee could solicit applications from property owners to designate their properties, and just provide us with a quick sort of a report at the next Heritage Committee meeting.
I also think that that is one of the pieces of the Heritage Education Subcommittee's mandate, is to encourage and promote designation of properties. So that might also be something that subcommittee could look at when we are able to meet again in person. I'll let Victoria add anything else that she wants to add though as well.
I don't have anything else to add.
Okay. Councillor McCreary, did you have anything else, or?
No, that was the extent of my question. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. Any other member have any questions about this report?
Nathan?
Okay. Yeah, Lise?
Hi, Lisa Marie. I don't know if it's in order or not, since it came up about heritage properties we kind of had in the pipeline before the Heritage Register came to be. I'm just wondering, the research and everything that was done previously, is that sitting somewhere? Because that's something that would take less of a process than if something was to come to light now. Do you know what I mean? I still remember which properties they were.
Can you allude to one of those properties, so maybe it will give some context for us?
Okay, one was the Victoria Schoolhouse, and the other was the Bone, I believe it's called, residence over on Chatham Street in Echo Place. And it was around the same time that 60 Market Street came. That one went forward, and we were kind of told there wasn't staff resources to put towards the rest, and it was either designate individual properties or do the heritage register.
Yes, I remember we did have a meeting about that, and maybe Victoria can also confirm my recollection. We did have a motion, and we discussed it at a Heritage Committee meeting, and the committee decided that the priority was the Heritage Register project over designation. And I believe at the time we had a brief discussion, as Victoria alluded to, that once the Heritage Register project is completed, we could take another look at those properties. And I believe all of those properties as well were considered for listing on the Heritage Register so that they would already be on the register.
Yes, that's correct. We did bring forward a report, and that was considered by the committee, and the committee, the option was to try, if the committee wanted staff to reallocate our resources to focusing on designation, then direction from council would be required. And at that time, the committee did not proceed with that option, so staff has continued prioritizing the Heritage Register project at this time. But we will certainly take a look at those properties, as well as the other properties I mentioned that were priority candidates for listing. We will take a look at those at the completion of the Heritage Register project, which will be in 2022, 2023.
Yeah.
So
and I believe when we had that discussion, I want to say it was perhaps late 2017 or early 2018 when we had that discussion.
Yes.
Does that answer your question, Lise? Sorry.
Maybe like a side question to that is, does that mean then until the register is done, we're not to put anything forward as a consideration for designation? Just because there's been various documents that we get with our meetings that kind of says that we can put forward a property at any time for consideration, but this kind of says otherwise. That's just clarification going forward.
I can answer that question through the chair. So the committee can certainly put forward recommendations. In order to have staff complete that type of work, we certainly need direction from council. And given staff's current workload, we aren't able to manage the Heritage Register project as well as initiating designation research. So if there are properties that come up and the committee wants to make that type of recommendation to council, it would be up to council to direct staff, and we would reallocate our workload to focus on that. We could put the Heritage Register project a phase on hold to complete that research.
Okay, that answers my question. Thank you.
Alan, do you want to add something? Go ahead.
I just wanted to apologize. My computer froze and I wasn't able to really do much at all, but I was able to listen. So thank you, Victoria, for handling those questions appropriately. I apologize.
Okay, perfect. So we have that motion, I believe. And do we have a mover and a seconder for it? Can the clerk remind me? Did we actually get a mover and a seconder for the motion?
It was moved by Ed Bernanke and seconded by Dan Brown.
Perfect. I think that we've heard a good amount of discussion about this. So if there are no other questions, I will call the question. All those in favor? Okay, thank you. Lise, indicate your vote.
In favor.
Thank you. I declare that approved. So we will now move on to the Ontario Business Improvement Association conference that was recently held last week online. Were any other members of the committee, did any of the other members of the committee sign up for that and attend that? Tamara? Okay. Anyone else? I attended as well and registered. Tamara, do you have a golden nugget that you would like to share from what you heard at the conference?
Basically, I think the general gist was that it's sort of at a tipping point right now. There are a lot of aspects going on climate change, the economy, the pandemic. So it's really put heritage at a back burner, and it's important for everybody to come together and realize that accessibility isn't just about physical ability, but also about financial and just having access to that culture across the board, basically. And all different cultures, it's not just, lifestyles of the rich and famous that we want to see. We want to see, the industrial heritage, the indigenous heritage, and conserve it also that for future generations to be able to learn from. That's it.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I have some little notes here that I made, some very brief notes. My biggest takeaway was, I guess, sentence was the highest level of access with the lowest level of impact on heritage. So, and they talked about having a permissible approach. Rather than saying we can't do things, we should be saying, well, we can do things. We just have to kind of think about them a different way. There were also talked about challenges with tenants and landlords, but they also did not mention about the general public. And I think that's where a lot of the misunderstandings about heritage come from, is from not understanding the process and how the process works. They also talked about, there was a planner there from Ottawa, and they continued to talk about how heritage is siloized. And they cited an example about heritage building, and they were putting in a ramp, and it was the first time that they ever thought to circulate the accessibility people on whether the ramp was appropriate. And they got some appropriate feedback that it wasn't appropriate. So it's interesting to note that as well is an issue. They also mentioned that, well, in one area, there was the BIA that did mention that they did walkabouts in the fall and spring of the downtown, I guess, main downtown core area. And they included a heritage planner with the BIA on that walk, so that when they were assessing properties, they could look at them for those issues of accessibility and heritage, making sure that things are compatible and they understand the purpose of it, before they put in an application to do something. So I thought that was a very interesting approach as well. So with that, there would need to be a mover and a seconder that of that motion, that subject to the submission of proof of payment to the city following the Brantford Heritage Committee members be reimbursed for the registration costs incurred for attending the Ontario Business Improvement Association's October 2021 web conference. And we would insert my name and Tamara's name in there. So would anyone want to make that motion? Susan? Seconder? Christopher? Any other discussion about that? Seeing none, I will call the question. All those in favor?
Favor.
All those. Thank you, Lise. I declare that motion carried then. Thank you very much. Moving right along, we are now into item number 5, which is consent items. So included in your agenda package were the minutes from our August 9th meeting, our last meeting. Are there any errors or omissions in the minutes? Okay, and I would entertain a motion for approval of the minutes then. Mara, you were there, and a seconder. Dan Brown, thank you very much. Any discussion? No? Everyone's clear on what we're voting for? All those in favor? Thank you. Hands down.
Favor.
Thank you, Lise. I declare that carried. Projects and other updates. Patrick, you had something here. The Heritage Permit Delegation of Authority. We wanted to talk about.
Yeah, so this is just a verbal update we wanted to share with the committee at the last meeting, and of course we couldn't due to a lack of quorum. So the planning department had taken a report through to committee of the whole, and it's actually going to council tomorrow night, and it looked at the existing delegation of authority and additional processes we could delegate. As the committee often sees, we have heritage permit applications that come before the committee. Usually every month we have at least one. Before these permits would be signed, if approved, they would go to the general manager. Taking advantage of this existing report, we revised the delegated authority from the general manager. We had a corporate restructuring, and now our general manager is not as active in planning, as they are responsible for legislative services like the clerk's department and legal real estate services and other corporate services. So we will be transferring the delegated authority to sign the heritage permit after committee has reviewed and approved it. It'll go instead to the director of planning. That is Nicole Wilmot. So previously she would have actually overseen reports prepared by Victoria or I. So that will keep the process streamlined. It'll keep it into the planning department. We'll be able to reach Nicole and have the permits that the committee approves executed quickly for our applicants. And just on the same matter of customer service and streamlining, we are planning to have a report before the committee in the next cycle that looks at our existing heritage permit processes, seeing what has changed with the Ontario Heritage Act, and are there any other opportunities to streamline and just update the documents that we've been using. And we will also be looking at the Heritage Grant Program and allowing the committee to comment on that before we take a report to council at the end of the year. And just allowing, again, that same look at how can we improve the process for applicants so that they can access these grants for their projects, where they're doing good conservation work. How can we support them and make this easier for them? So that's just something to look forward next month.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for that update. So something to look forward to for our November meeting at the end of November. There are no subcommittee updates, no resolutions, and no notices of motion. So with that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Thank you, Susan. Thanks everyone for your time tonight. I appreciate it. And we had a very efficient meeting. So thank you.
So great to see you all.